good evening, TDN listeners and viewers to this weekend interview. Welcome to another episode. Today is July the 9th, 2025. And I'm your host, Anthony Drago, your host and guide, I like to say, because I see my role more as guiding conversation more than anything else, guiding a discussion, guiding a conversation, guiding an exploration of a particular topic or subject area. And I depend on your comments and usually the thoughts of my guests. And I just guide it into uncharted territory because this week in interview prides itself in discussing topics from an angle and from a perspective that is different from what you may have been familiar with, just clicking your mouse, browsing the internet, and clicking your remote to turn on your TV. We like to say that we're different. We're not just a Me Too type of program. And so tonight, I join. I'm happy to be sitting here with you uh, for a very important discussion. I don't have a guest tonight. I deliberately did not set up a guest for today because I want us to have a little discussion. So gather near, everyone, gather near. Grab your water if you haven't done so. Grab your favorite beverage. It's the middle of the week. Let's have this discussion. So good evening to you, my regular listeners. Of course, um, it's always a pleasure to have you. I always let you know that I don't take your presence for granted. I appreciate the fact that you come back every Wednesday to spend this time with us on this week in interview. And those of you who are stumbling across or have got your special invitation to this weekend interview, and this happens to be your first tuning into this weekend interview, welcome. And I hope that you like the way we do it here, that you too can one day boast to be in a regular listener to this weekend interview. In Dominica, RVR Jams radio, online radio is RVR Jams on DigiPlay channel 59 carries this weekend interview live. Also, Radio SBE online in the Toronto market also carries this week in interview live as well. So good evening to you. Tonight, as I told you, I don't have a guest, but I think that we can spend the hour together. I encourage you to put your comments as we go along, and I'll address them. But what I really wanted to talk about really is how you would say it, aspirations, visions, goals for us as a people. Uh, we are in the month of July, and those of you who are regular to this week in interview, you you know that I like to mark those milestones. At New Year's, I encourage you to set your goals and your targets and so on for the year. Have you had your healthcare checkup? Have you have you written down your goals? So we do this in January, and then at the end of the first quarter, I also come back. Usually, I have a guest. Sometimes it's Cleo Michaels or Dr. Triffy. I bring them on and we talk about goal setting and achievements and so on. Not so much of a New Year's resolution. There's nothing wrong with a New Year's resolution if you resolve to do activities that taking you closer to the person that you want to be. The start of the year is a good time to do that. And so this being July, the we're just into the second week of July, which is the beginning of the second half of 2025. Uh, I thought that we could talk about that aspect. How are you doing in pursuing your goals and your objectives? Did you set any health goals for yourself? Did you set any health goals for yourself this year? Did you set any relationship goals? Do you need to work on your relationship with your kids, your sons, your daughters, your husbands, your wives, your neighbor, your boss, your colleagues? Did you set any goals or targets that if you were to achieve them, would take you more towards being the person that you want to be, because that's what I think goals are supposed to be. We don't pursue goals, or we should not be pursuing goals for the sake of pursuing the goals. We pursue goals so that we become the people that can achieve those goals. What do I mean by that? The most common goal that I think people set is financial goals. So let's say that you set your goal to become a millionaire. To become a millionaire, if you're not a millionaire, you have to go for a transformation. Otherwise, just becoming a millionaire for the sake of a millionaire, when you get there, it will be a very empty sort of achievement. We have stories about folks who won the lottery. They win the lottery, and because they are not have not transformed into the person who can manage that type of wealth or riches, a lot of times they lose it just like that. So that's what I mean when I say that you set your goal not necessarily for the goal in and of itself. You set your goal because of the person that you have to become in order to achieve and sustain that goal. And so that is one aspect of goal setting that folks usually don't pay attention to, as individuals, as families, as corporations, as communities. You see a lot of times, sometimes a business or an individual. Good evening, and Didi, Easter, welcome above. It's always a pleasure to have you every week. Uh, you see, a business might set, okay, or an entrepreneur, Sina as well, Sina Bertrand, good evening to you. Uh, an entrepreneur might say, okay, I'm going to start a business, and that is their goal. But why are you starting the business? So then they start a business, and the business starts successfully, and all of a sudden they find that they didn't have a plan beyond starting the business. So tonight, though, what I want to talk about is our goals and our visions as a people, not necessarily as individuals. Of course, our community is made up of individuals. So as a community achieves its objectives or sets a vision, that objective and that vision should be an aggregate of a collective of the visions and objective of the people that make up that community. And so I was looking at some data, and that's something that we will dive into. Our data in the Caribbean is so sparse, just absolutely non-existent, that in trying to do any kind of research or planning for the Caribbean is difficult to do because we are not big on data. I hope that we can train some statisticians that would go about collecting data that our leaders can use for decision making. But what I found out was that a lot of the islands, and I'm not focusing too much on Jamaica and Trinidad and Guyana, I'm talking a lot about the Eastern Caribbean. A lot of our countries became independent in and around 50 years ago. So Dominica is 1978, so it's 45, 46 years ago. St. Lucia is 79, 45 years ago. Grenada, 74, so like 51 years ago. St. Vincent, 79, 46 years ago. Antigua, 1981, 44 years ago. St. Kitts, Nevis, 42 years ago. Barbados, around 69 years ago, 1966. No, if it's 1966, it can't be 69. Uh, because that means I'm a very old man. So it's more like 57, right? So in 66, 59. Yeah. So 59, not 69. So all of these islands in the OECS are in and around 50 years of independence in the sense of self-governing. A lot of people make the case that they're not really independent because they still have the queen on the money, and they never really became a republic. So technically, the queen is still the head of state. Notwithstanding that, they still have like a governor general, a lieutenant governor, or the governor general that represents the queen. Dominica is one of the few islands. Actually, Dominica is one of the only islands that went directly into a republic, and so we're not on that. We broke away completely. So as we approach, or we're going past that milestone of being self-governing for 50 years, what are our aspirations as a people? What what are we aspiring to? Those of us who were, for example, I'm from Dominica. I was right around 10 years old, 11 years old when Dominica became independent. I'm now, is that what middle ages? I guess that's what middle ages. If you expect to be 100 and you're somewhere around 50 in your middle ages, right? Middle age. If you write in a book about a person, you say a middle-aged man walked into the room. When you hear that, you're thinking of somebody who's probably 47, 48 to maybe 60, 65. After 60, 65, you become a senior citizen, I think, right? As I go up, I put it as a moving target. As I approach 65, 67, I'm going to say, no, a senior person is more like 70, right? But you get my point, though. As our countries become 50-ish years of self-governing, do we take a pause and look at the road that we've traveled, assess what we have accomplished, whether it makes us proud or whether it gives us cause for pause? How do we then project forward and say, okay, how can we get our country on a trajectory that would get us to where we want to be? And I would propose to you that as a country, if we had to set an aspiration or a goal, it should be that our people have the highest possible quality of life, right? In simple terms, as subjective as that sounds. If you have to say what is our aspiration as a country, as a people, as a race, our aspiration, if we had to distill it down to its core, would be that we would want to have it in a situation where our people have the highest quality of life. So if you can put in the chat, if you have, what does that mean? Or what do you think we can set as an aspiration? What are some of the components that we would want to see inside of that? What constitute a good quality of life? And so I did a little bit of research and I found that there's something called a quality of life index. And I went in excitedly to look at the quality of life index, but only to find out that Dominica is not included among that list because I guess obviously they don't have data from Dominica to be able to determine or to rank us in terms of quality of life on our quality of life index. And but I will still tell you what some of the criteria that they had that made up the quality of life index. So they had purchasing power index. Okay. So not cheapness, but that people in the country can make an income that gives them the ability to buy food to feed their family, to buy a home or to pay rent so they can have decent living conditions, that they can afford to buy clothes, that they can afford a little bit of extra for some leisure and some recreation. No, purchasing power. So even if you're making $1,000 a month, how far does your $1,000 stretch? Does it does it give you a quality of life that's comparable, say, to somebody that's making $5,000 a month? But if you're making $5,000 a month, and somebody another country, the average income is 1,000. You would think that that person has a quality of life that's 3 or 4 or 5 times higher, but not necessarily, because if you make $5,000 a month, but it's going to take you 4,000 or 3,000 just to pay for housing, and then you're struggling at the end of the month with the other 2,000 to pay whatever. The person that makes 1,000 might have $100 left over, which is 10% of their income, whereas the person making 5,000 might be struggling to have a 2 or 3% residue that they can save. So purchasing power is one of the indices that is used. The next one they use is safety index. How secure are you? How, you are in your home and you feel like you want to go stretch your legs, but it's 7 p.m. You look outside, it's starting to get dark. How comfortable are you that you can just walk down the street, take a walk, a leisurely walk from your home, or you do a night shift or an evening shift and you get out of work at 9 p.m.? How secure do you feel just walking to the bus stop or walking home or driving? Uh, Safety index. Safety could also be the condition of your roads, how prone are your driving conditions to accidents, um, even the pavement that you walk on the sidewalk in the city, is it even and smooth, or are you likely to trip and fall? So safety, violence, crime, but also the way society is organized. Safety index. As somebody who works in the construction industry, safety usually brings me to working conditions, especially for guys who work in construction, because construction accidents can be so severe. You lose a finger if you're lucky. You might lose an arm or a leg or an eye or your life. And so safety index, I am including it to include employment and workplace conditions, as well as crime and violence, as well as hazards. So safety index. The next one is healthcare index. Does the average person have access to healthcare to recover quickly from minor disease and illness, all the way up to access to quality care for more serious and more severe conditions? Property price to income ratio, right? Property price to income ratio. They have a cost of living index, which I think we've touched on a little bit. Traffic commute time, pollution index, climate index. So how clean is the air that you breathe in? How easy you can access safe and drinking water? Uh, how again you go back to working conditions. Are you working in situations where you always are exposed to high temperatures and heat stress, or cold and cold stress, or dust? All of those things. So you get the idea of sort of some of the things that would measure. I don't know if you want to put in the chat, um, what are some of your ideas that contribute towards the indication of a quality of life, of the quality of life? What else do we? Maybe freedom to express yourself, freedom to practice your religion or not to practice your religion, freedom to express your sexual preference without harassment, freedom to raise your children, to conduct your family according to your own philosophy. Of course, as a community, there is some influence on all of that, but within reason, your freedom to be able to live your life and, in general, to pursue happiness. Those are some of the things I think we would look at as we look to the quality of life index that we would want to pay attention to if we had to deliberately sit down and assess 50 years since we're self-governing. How have we done so far? where would we like to be when we are 60 or 75 years independence? In other words, what kind of Dominica, what kind of St. Lucia, what kind of Grenada, what kind of Barbados we would like our grandchildren to live in. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what we are talking about tonight. We have to think about those things because growing up we used to hear, oh, what you expect, we're just a small island. Those high ideas that you have, you think you're in America. Oh, we are poor, we're only a small island, we're poor with limited resources. If we don't get, recently after the hurricane, we hear our leaders saying our country cannot recover from the blow that we received from Hurricane Maria if we don't get help from people on the outside. How do you feel when you hear those kind of statements that basically we're not self-sufficient, we don't have the wherewithal to be able to support ourselves? So let's do the analogy, right? You have you have a child, you have children, and your son or your daughter uh, becomes 18, 19, 20, 21 year old, and they decide, you know what? I think I am adult enough that I want to go live on my own. I want to set the own rules for my life. I'm in my mother and my father's house, and therefore they think like they have a say in when I if I go just choose to go to the club every Friday night and I spend the night out and I come back at 8 a.m. I don't feel like I need to give an explanation. That's not saying that when you leave you don't inform loved ones where you are, but you just want to have a little more autonomy or a lot more autonomy. So you as a parent, heartbroken as you may be, your baby has grown up, your daughter, your son, your princess, your prince has grown up, and they choose to go on their own. Now, as parents, we know a lot of times we assist our kids. Sometimes we don't them needing it, but we just want to give them a little bit of a feathered um, bed to land on so that it's not immediately harsh. Everybody wants to, I think everybody aspires to be able to put their offspring a little bit higher than where they started, right? So if we started at 1, we want to put our kids at 3, and hopefully our kids can put their kids at 6, and so on and so on. It's natural in the humanity to aspire for a higher level. But what do you feel like if every time life throws a shock at at that child comes back to you expecting you, feeling entitled that you have to bail him or her out. Otherwise, he's going to be destitute or she's going to be destitute, she's going to be homeless, she's going to be what? You may tell that child, you know what? You obviously was not ready to be out on your own. You should come back home, right? So that's what it sounds like when you hear a country says, "Oh, we were hit by a hurricane, and if you guys don't help us to get back on our feet, we are not able to do it by ourselves." How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel as a Dominican, as a St. Lucian, as a Kititian, as a Vincentian, as a Grenadian? How does that make you feel when you hear your leader say that our people are poor because we are a small island? We can only afford to provide a certain level of quality of life for our people. Our people should be understanding that because they don't live in in an America or Canada or UK, they don't expect to have a certain quality of life. They don't expect to have access to a certain level of health care. They don't expect to have a certain level of education for their kids. They don't because we are a small island with limited resources. So the question that raises in my mind is, so in that case, right, should you have gone and taken independence? If you take independence and having declared yourself independent as a people, you are here now saying, I know I declared myself independence, but look at what happened to us. There's no way we can recover without your help. Now, most countries get help and assistance when there's a disaster because people have humanity and they come to assist, and therefore maybe the recovery is quicker, the suffering of your people is less. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where a leader says, if we don't get help from these people, there's no way we can make it. If we don't get a grant from these folks, there's no way we can make it. We don't have a plan where on our own we can devise a plan that can constantly improve the quality of life of our people. What does that say? Now, let's see what the listener is saying. Small island developing states. That statement has been such a detriment to our people, telling us because we are small, we can't do better or grow. Well, that is so true because uh, I think it's in Napoleon's Hill book. He says that if you believe you can, you're correct, and if you believe you can't, you're also correct. So mindset and your own belief about yourself is probably key to what we can achieve. So if we have that psyche and we impose that psyche on our people, that because we are an island, we can only expect so much and not more. No more, only so much and not more. That mindset in itself set a ceiling over where we can expect to aspire beyond? Does that make sense? So, how do we that's why I think discussions like what we're having right now is important because it's to address that very type of mentality where sometimes our people are not even encouraged to think about those ideas. We're not we're not encouraged to think about as a people where do we want to aspire to. So for example, let's take Dominica as an example. Dominica became independent in 1978. So therefore, in 2028, we'll be 50 years old. That's 3 years from now. If we were to, if we were to sit and to write, actually write it down, what what would we like to see, or how would we like our life or in Dominica to be when at the point we become 50 years independent? So let's describe what kind of healthcare system we would like to have. Let's describe what kind of education system that we would like to have that feeds into a certain type of employment, a certain type of leisure, leisure and recreation, um, safety, uh, our ability as individuals, as families to purchase the things that we need to purchase to support our lives and the causes that we believe in. If we had to sit down deliberately and say, okay, if I could wave a magic wand, so no, let me lose the statement that most Dominicans use. If I ever win the lottery, boy, if I ever win the lottery, this is what I would go to Dominica and do for Dominica. So if you were going to win the lottery, so the lottery goes up to $2 billion US, and you say, man, if I win that lottery, this is what I would go to Dominica and do because this is what I think it would do for the quality of life of my people. What would that be? What would healthcare look like? What would education look like? What would recreation look like? What would our arts look like? What would sports look like? So on and so on. What kind of employment and income earning capacity would we have for our people? How would we preserve our environment, our water supply, our endless top quality drinking water? What would we do to preserve it in that state? If we had to sit down, if that was our exercise, let's make it our exercise. Let us sit down and decide what we would like to see Dominica be when it turns 50 years old. So call it Vision 50. whatever we want to call it. W- What is that vision for Dominica when Dominica is 50 years independent? And do the same thing for St. Lucia, do the same thing for Grenada, do the same thing for Grenada passed their own last year, 2024. So maybe Grenada might want to say, this is what we would have liked, so let's shoot it for 5 more years. If we seriously write it down, then we can say, okay, our healthcare system, we would like to have that word state of the art facilities so that our people up to maybe brain surgery would be able to get care in Dominica. And if it's brain surgery, then there is a hospital in St. Lucia that specializes in that, so they can go to St. Lucia for that. And if it's heart surgery, St. Lucians can come to Dominica for heart surgery. And if it's uh, you know diabetes or whatever, we can go to Grenada for that. Whatever it is, whether all of it is going to be available in your country or there is an actual plan that our folks have access to healthcare. Not what's happening now that we have to go do a GoFundMe or this or that, or we have to appeal to the goodness of a minister or whatever it is, and there's not a clear entitled process for that. We're talking about a system that we all pay into that is available to us in a very clear and transparent manner. So this is Anthony Drago. Here is his ID. He's Dominican, and he has a condition that needs attention. It's available in Dominica, or you say, well, there's a specialist hospital in St. Lucia. We have an arrangement with them. We have air transport. Let's transport him to St. Lucia, and he gets the care. And similarly, St. Lucia comes to Dominica for whatever condition. If we were to think about that and say, you know what, how do we go about organizing that? Education. Would we look at the what kind of economy would we like to have in Dominica? And if that's the economic activity that we would like to have, how do we train our people so that they can find employment in that economy? So, for example, Dominica is known for its water supply and so on. Let us build a water industry. What are the jobs that are involved in a water industry? Engineering, marketing, um, mechanics, whatnot and whatnot, purchasing, accounting, chemistry, water control, water quality control, and so on. How do we then educate our public or our students so that in 5 years' time we know we have 4 or 5 chemists, we have a cadre of mechanics, we have marketing people, we have and so on and so forth, right? That's what I'm talking. How do we adjust our education system to do that? If we say, another industry that I would like to develop is our arts and culture. What does that look like? Calypso, painting, writing, music. Okay, how do we insert that into our curriculum so that we have art and therefore we can produce directors, producers, actors and actresses, camera people, script writers, and so on? How do we filter back into the education system? So again, in 5 years' time, we have folks who are knowledgeable about those industries, and therefore, so you see what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that we have to be able to sit as mature people. We have to be able to sit and to figure out where do we want to be. So just like what I was saying is that when you set a goal for yourself, You have to figure what type of person do I have to transform myself into so that I can achieve that goal and maintain that goal. Similarly, as a country, if we set goals and aspiration, we have to, with that has to come, okay, so if this is what we want in our economy, we want to have an industrial area or a city built up a little bit, then we need to train people into project management, into construction, into this and that and the other, and to have we value our rivers and our clean air. So we need to have environmentalists and so on. How do we reverse engineer from where we aspire to be, take it back to where we are, and look at the gap and say, okay, we have that gap because our education system now needs to get adjusted to produce the people in there. That, and when I say education system, it doesn't just have to be young people, it can be adults that you get retrained. All of that gets taken into account. So I'm going to take a quick break, but I hope that you are on board with me with that type of discussion. I think those are the discussions that we need to have so that we can encourage our people to think about our thoughts and our behaviors, to move our country, to bend the track, the trajectory that our country is taking, and bend it towards our aspiration. Let's get our people thinking about a vision 50. Where would we like Dominica to be when it goes past the 50-year mark for independence? Well, if you're from Grenada, where do you think Grenada should have been when it went back, go through 50 years last year? And if there are gaps between where it should be and where it is, how do we adjust course and bring it back so that we can get to that as soon as possible? And so on and so forth. So that's the discussion that we're having. Aspirations and goals as a people of the region. Take a quick break, get a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to continue this discussion. And as we said, you don't dwell in the past, but one of the ways to adjust your trajectory is to look back and see where you came from, because that sort of indicates where you're heading, and you can adjust your course, adjust your heading, so that you can move it to where you want to be. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned. This is Anthony Drago, and this is This Week in Interview.
Presented by
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
Looking to promote your business, engage current customers, and reach new people? Well, look no further. From the basic presentation to a fully fledged advertisement, use your video ads to attract customers. At Man's Audiovisual Productions, we do just that. We produce videos for business and event promotions, product demo videos, animated explainer videos, fundraiser ads, and much, much more. Engage your clients and sell online. We customize the video to match your brand design. Guaranteed to play flawless on all devices, including smart TVs. Contact us at telephone number 203-690-4342 or 767-245-6238. Visit our website, mansaudiovisual.com. or email us at derekvideo@gmail.com.
Hey y'all, I just discovered an amazing plugin called Joan, Jock on Air Now, for managing my radio station's on-air schedule. It keeps your visitors updated on what's playing and when their favorite hosts are live. Trust me, Joan is the best choice for your WordPress site. There's a free version available in the WordPress repository and it's definitely worth trying. If you want even more features, Joan Premium lets you easily edit your schedule with just a click. No need to delete and re-add shows. Don't miss out on Joan. Get it now from the WordPress plugins repository or visit the developers at gndenterprisesinc.com for more info.
All right, so we're back, and uh, it's July. It's the middle of the year, and I'm encouraging you to think about your year. Where are you in terms of your goals? What have you achieved? Are you on course to achieve what you set out to achieve? If not, what adjustments can you make to get on track? Have you already achieved your goals, and therefore you need to set even higher goals? That's what the discussion is as individuals, but I'm focusing tonight a lot on us as a people. So as we in the islands in the Eastern Caribbean are approaching in and around 50 years of self-governance, I'm challenging us to sit down and to look at where we are, beat our chest and be proud of our accomplishments, and look at the areas where we need improvement and do it from a perspective of quality of life. One of the things that points to our shortfall is the amount of migration that still takes place from these countries. I did in a quick thing, in a quick research. Yeah, Dominica has a population of 66,000 people. It varies. They've been saying 70 for a long time. Finally, it dropped below 70, 66,000. St. Lucia has 180,000. Grenada has 117. St. Vincent 100,000. Antigua 93,000. St. Kitts Nevis around 50,000. I'm sorry. And Barbados a little less than 300,000. These islands together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 islands together, have collectively about 1 million people. Now, when we were an enslaved region, when we were colonized, we were an important part of the various empires, the British Empire, the French, the Dutch, and so on. And they were able to build their empires based on colonization. It wasn't just the region. They had India and they had Africa and so on. But in large part, we were valuable enough, otherwise they would have dropped us, to help to build those economies into powerhouses. I'm saying that since we took over from them around 50 years ago, that should have been enough time for us to figure out how we can use the resources of the region for the benefit of the people of the region, how we can use the resources of the region to produce the best quality of life for our people. And we have a distinct advantage. We don't have winters. Our summers are not too severe. We have pretty much uniform and predictable weather throughout. Yeah, we get hit by hurricanes, but we know that. So what can we do to mitigate against that, right? How can we use the resources of the region so that we can turn our region into an empire? I mean, it should be relatively easy if these other countries were able to do it in a time when it used to take a couple months to sail from England to Dominica. Now that we have technology that makes so much resources accessible and so much capacity available, How can we as a people look around us, use the resources that we have around us, right? So that we can produce enough in our economy to make a higher and a better quality of life for our people. So that when we become 60-ish, we can look back and we can say that we are proud to be from the Caribbean, because look at what the contribution the Caribbean is making to the world. We were making tremendous contribution to the world because we were forced into forced and free labor. Our parents resisted and our parents fought and were able to take over the plantation, so to speak, and hand the plantation to us. And I dare say we've not been able to do much with the plantation. I'm going to say this again. Our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents were brought here against their will. They were brought here in chains. They were subjected to all type of brutality, all type of cruelty. They endured, they resisted, they fought back, and were able to wrestle control of the land, of the area. Some of the best situated areas on planet Earth. They were able to wrestle that out of the hands of the people who were brutalizing them and secure it and hand it to us. Have we lived up to to that legacy? We have nobody holding a gun to our head. We have nobody holding a whip over our shoulder. We have nobody lynching us. We have nobody brutalizing us, forcing us against our will to do things. But we've not been able to harness the same resources in a modern setting, of course, and to be able to produce a quality of life that we should be producing for our people. What is that? What's going on? Are we have the same brain power, I should say, maybe even more brain power. We have two arms and two legs and blood flowing through our bodies. Why is it that we making such heavy weather of a go at it? We can call it all sorts of excuses that as black people we are oppressed because of trauma from slavery, blah 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 blah. How long can we ride on those excuses? Have we even taken advantage of what we can do in and among ourselves so that we can empower ourselves before outside influence can impact us? So, if you have a farm and you have land on that farm that you can grow your food, and you have a river where you can get water, and so on and so on. If you have not even taken advantage of that land so that you can feed your family adequately and well, but you're complaining that the reason why your family is suffering is because nobody wants to buy your food, or nobody brings you this, or but you have not even maximized the use of the land that you have to be able to feed your family. That is where we are. That's where we are. We complain about being small islands. Well, good. If we're a small island, it means that we have less people to feed, we have less people to provide health care for, we have less kids to educate, we have less roads to maintain, we have less. That should be an advantage, or that can be an advantage. But if we're thinking, well, our workforce is only 20,000, how can we produce this? No, then you are defeated before you start. We should see our small size as an advantage. If you sail in an aircraft carrier and you just have a little schooner, and as you go out to sea, you see a storm out on the horizon, and both you, the aircraft carrier, the captain of the aircraft carrier and the captain of the schooner, says, you know what, that looks severe. We need to turn around and go to safe harbor. The schooner can almost make an immediate turn and go to safe harbor, as opposed to the aircraft carrier that has to make a very wide turn, and it takes it so much time that it may not even be able to have time to do it. So that's similar. Our small economy should make us more nimble and more adaptable to changes in the economic environment. And therefore, there are several advantages to our small size and our small populations. So if you take Dominica, for example, Dominica has one hospital, a couple glorified health centers, but one hospital. You're telling me that as a country we cannot get the resources to make that hospital be the best that it can possibly be? Just one hospital? How many secondary schools do we have? Maybe five? As a people, we cannot run five secondary schools to produce the best results that we need. We cannot produce facilities that can help us to create Olympic athletes. We have maybe what? Maybe 100 miles of road, if all that, 200 miles of road. How much does it take to maintain 100 miles of road? Our roads should be of the absolute best quality. This is what I'm saying. The fact that we are small should be an advantage, that we should be able to supply all of those things to the absolute best quality. And soon we can go beyond that and create surplus that we can trade and to bring income in that's even going to make it even more beneficial for our people. So we need to get, just as this one of you in the audience said, this small island mentality that was imposed on us and make us think that we're limited in capacity. We need to break off that shackle and to say no. We have the ability to think as big as we want to think. We have the brain power. We have the strength. We have the know-how. We have the perseverance. We have the willpower to achieve anything that we want to achieve. And it's proven. When our folks leave and they go to the other countries, they achieve so much. So it's a matter of a mindset shift, a perspective shift that we need, and we as a people have to aspire for that. If our leaders are benefiting from our lack of aggressive ambition, pursuit of our happiness, we should take the lead and pursue it ourselves, and they will have no choice but to follow, right? Because there's just what, 10 of them, 20 of them. There's 66,000 of us. We can take it and we can lead it. And guess what? If we aspire for more, they cannot be there anymore, because we will realize that they've not been able to deliver, and we'll replace them with try somebody else. Try somebody else. So that is what I think we have to look at. King Edward says, I would love to go back, but I've been told I think too much and dream too big. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, King Edward. That folks like to say, I remember when I went back to Dominica in 1990 from studying, computers were not as prevalent as they were. And talking to some folks about what we can use computers to do. And you know how many times people told me, "Oh, you come from America with your big ideas, those cannot work in Dominica." And so because of that, we let so much opportunities go by. If we look at what's happening, our musicians are producing world-class music, but they produce it, and that's where it stops until a Trinidad comes and even try to say, well, bouillon is soca and therefore bouillon is from Trinidad, whereas soca is from Dominica and they co-opted it and made it Trinidad. But that's a different story. But all I'm saying is that That's a disease that we have in the Caribbean, especially in the Eastern Caribbean, where we think that ideas are too big for us. How can an idea be too big for us? And so I would like to say that we can set up aspirations and goals in terms of economic opportunity. We should stop running our countries as stock farms. What do I mean by that? Right now, the Caribbean is basically a stock farm because what we do, we produce babies, and these babies, we nurture them for the first 10, 12, 18 years of their life. And then the aspiration is to go somewhere else to contribute to somebody else's economy. So basically, what we're producing is stock, is human livestock. Okay. I mean, I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's basically where we're a farm. We produce young human beings, we give them the foundation of an education, and we send them out to go build somebody else's country. So there's no difference to that than if you're raising cattle and you have a farm that's breeding top quality cattle. That farm breeds cattle, and you go there, you buy some cattle, you bring them on, and you raise them, and you raise them for milk or for meat, and and you just keep the supply coming. So basically, the islands in the Caribbean is operating as stock farms. We need to stop that, and we need to say no. We as a people, we're already producing this really high, big brain, high functioning mentally people. Let us create economic opportunity right here so that the aspiration of a young person is not to leave. There's enough happening that a young person can see a career, jump into a career or a job, and see the possibility of earning enough so to feed their family, and all of that comes with that. But right now, folks who can live, and folks who cannot live operate in despair. And because of that despair, we have crime, we have lack of security, we have, all of these other negative things that happen. People become fathers and mothers too early in their life, and we have poor healthcare outcomes and so on. So, economic activity, let's set goals for that. Safety and security, safety and security, uh, food security and nourishment. We, Well, even before that, I want to talk about our identity. Let's work on making us proud to be Dominican. And even taking it a step back, let's define what it is to be a St. Lucian, what it is to be a Dominican, what it is to be a Grenadian. Let us define that, and therefore our folks have a basis for which to be proud that I am a Dominican, I am a St. Lucian, a Grenadian, and so on. Once we do that, it becomes now easier for us to develop. From that pride will spring all kinds of positive outcomes. So Pyro says, I think we have been conditioned into mediocrity, especially since we have had many failures via weak leadership, but it will eventually change. We should focus on the changes, especially since we have spent years dwelling on the problems. So that's exactly what Pyro, exactly what we're saying. We're saying that we should pause where we are and project our minds 5 years, 10 years down the road, deciding where we would like to be. What would we like to see the average income of an individual be in Dominica? We would like to see w- our safety and security level rise. We'd like to see healthcare happen in Dominica where everybody has access to a quality healthcare. Food security, we would like to see our farmers be encouraged and supported so that they can produce food, and our people educated to understand the value of the food that we produce and the nourishment of it, the nutrient dense. Recreation, we should aspire for recreation to become a part of our society, where we have arts and culture and sports or music or you know going to the river, our traditions, river picnics, beach picnics, and so on, our celebration, our feasts, and so on. Let us bring that in, package it properly, think about it properly, and it becomes part of the fabric of our societies that we become proud of it. Our education system, let us in that vision that we paint for ourselves, that will filter back into how we need to educate our people and what we need to educate them in, what we need to train them in, so that we are producing folks who can thrive in that economy and produce and have the skills to be able to contribute to the economy. Our governance, once we set our sights on where we want to be, it will be easy to recognize governance that's not meeting those needs, because obviously, if we aspire to have a top healthcare, and we see time and time again, every time somebody has a moderate accident or illness, we're doing a GoFundMe to take them out of the country. We would recognize that we are being moved away from where aspirations would be, and therefore we would be demanding better governance. We would be demanding more equitable governance, or the functioning of our court system, of our police, our just the whole justice system, fair and equitable, where people feel a certain level of freedom, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom to pursue happiness, wherever they define that happiness to be. Of course, we'll be governed by rules and laws, and not on the whims and fancies of some human being or some set of people. Those are the aspirations I think we need to set at: economic activity, safety and security, healthcare, food security and nourishment, recreation, arts, sports, culture, leisure, education, fair and equitable governance, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, pursuit of happiness. So technology gives us an advantage. The internet, artificial intelligence, so many apps, so much education that's online, YouTube videos, online universities, all of those things give us the tools that we need if we're serious about pursuing those aspirations, setting them first of all and pursuing them. The tools are there for us to do it and to encourage us. We I think we've spent enough time basking in our post enslavement trauma. Nobody is denying that we were conditioned. Nobody is denying that is the conditioning is continued to be reinforced. But if we start to recognize that we are, we would start to identify the triggers, whether it is the way we socialize, whether it is the way we worship our God, whether it is the way that our relationship with substances, with marijuana, with cocaine, with crack, with alcohol, with cigarettes, whatever it is that keep us in that trauma setting, that post-enslavement trauma setting, we would recognize it and we could shift our communities and our societies out of that realm, and focus and set our sides up, straighten our backs. Martin Luther King says it's difficult for someone to ride your back if you're standing straight. So let's stand straight. Let's stand proud. Let's identify who we are. What if I ask you, is you proud to be Dominican? What does it mean to be a Dominican? What's the difference between a Dominican and a Saint Lucian? What's the difference between a Saint Lucian and a Grenadian? And even we come together as a region, what's the difference between a Caribbean person and an American, North American, uh, or UK? Our Let's think about our identity and what our identity is made up of. And it's not something that is set in stone, it's something that we can determine for ourselves. I am proud to be Dominican because Dominica is a nature island. I'm very enthusiastic about the environment. and Dominica has pristine and clean drinking water and fresh air, and our economic activity. We take pride in not harming that environment, and Dominicans are hospitable and friendly, and so on and so on. What are the five things that make us Dominican? And how do I embody that if I say I am Dominican? What makes us proud to be Dominican? When, all the aspects of that. That's where we have to be, because as I said when we started, we have to imagine the type of people that we have to become, the type of person that we have to become that would enable us to achieve our aspirations. So it has to start with that self identity, that identity as a community. Once we've done that, our aspirations are set, we know who we are. It's difficult for somebody to steer us in the wrong direction. It makes us very protective of what we are, because without that, people come in and they buy our treasures from underneath us. And we watch them do it and we feel helpless. But if you have that self identity and that self pride, we will speak up and we will take a stand against it. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed the conversation that I had tonight. I hope so. I hope somehow this little monologue will have helped you to at least think about it. Think about where we want our community to be in another 10 years or 5 years, 10 years. What type of Dominica we would like to have our children and our grandchildren grow up into. Don't feel that, well, I am already X years, so therefore let the young people think about that. No, let us plant a tree, even though if we know fully well we will not get to enjoy the shade cast by that tree. Because by the time that tree becomes a mature tree, it's likely that we will no longer be here to sit under that tree and enjoy the shade. But we plant it now because we know our child and our grandchild is going to sit in that shade and take a rest and take a breather. Let's plant that tree, knowing that is we don't plant it for us. But when our grandson or granddaughter is sitting under that tree, they're going to say thank you to that whoever it is that initiated that. So let us set those aspirations. Let us set and be ambitious, because we are small. Because we are a small economy, we can turn, we can bend our track very easily, because we only have small numbers to take care of. Oh, I want to tell you, thank you so much for staying with me throughout this hour. And I hope I gave you some food for thought. Think about it, take a piece of paper and write down. Pick one or two areas. If you want to share it with us, go ahead and share it with us. Share it in the chat. Go on our YouTube page for This Week in Interview YouTube page, or TDN Radio YouTube page. Go on our Facebook page and just put your thoughts in. Pick two, three, four, five areas. What would you like to see happen in that area at the time Dominica becomes 50 years of independence, or St. Lucia? Grenada turned last year, but where would you want to be? Let us have this conversation. Let us sustain that conversation. Let us also try to define, what does it mean to be a Dominican? What does it mean to be a St. Lucian? What does it mean to be a Grenadian, and so on and so forth? All right. So I say good night. And for those of you who are celebrating your anniversaries, congratulations, happy anniversary, happy birthday. Some folks who have suffered losses. One of the people that we consider to be part of the TDN family, Mr. Alex Bruno, lost his son yesterday, I think, through some violence. Um, he succumbed to an unfortunate violent activity in Roseau. So our thoughts uh, go out to him and his family, and we wish them strength and grace. It's always difficult to lose someone so young, and let us use those opportunities to spur us on to aspire to be better and to do better and to do well. Okay, so folks, thank you so much. Enjoy the remainder of your week. Oh, one more thing before I go. Remember, Castlebrew's Family and Friends reunion is taking place August 10th to the 17th. If you haven't made your plans to go, now is the time to do that. You can get your week pass at islandeventtickets.com, islandeventtickets.com. You can get your week pass there. If you just want to make a contribution, you can also make a contribution. You can contact me, send me an email, send me a text, and I can guide you through the process. So if you're from Castle Bruce or you know somebody from Castle Bruce, Sina, I know you are, I should not even say, how do you say, let's just say you're a Castle Bruce person. All right. So we hope to see you there as well. Um, and so on. All right. So one last comment before I go. What is Didi saying? Didi East is saying you must first get rid of this corrupt regime to bring this aspiration to fruition. We can either choose to get rid of them first or we can move ourselves in that direction and they will naturally fall off, you know, naturally fall off. If you have stuff on you, it can survive while you at the level that they are, but if you raise your level, they will naturally fall off because you will not tolerate. We as a people will not tolerate the bad governance or the corruption or all of what we say that they are. They would naturally fall out because leadership doesn't come from heaven. Leadership rises up from among the people. So if the people change their aspirations and their psyche, fresh and aspirational leadership will also rise from the people. So yes, folks, good night, and we do this again next week.